Help, I have done it again. I have been here many times before. I hurt myself.
If you knew my story, you know that I went through the loneliness of losing my father and losing my mother, who went to prison for 2 years in 5th grade.
If you knew my story, you would know that ever since I started school, I was always harassed and I was always alone. No one would ever help me.
If you knew my story, then you'd know that I survived the death of my mother and being sexually abused as a child.
Whoa, I told you.
If you know my story, you'll know in my freshman year, I lost my brother and I distanced myself until my junior year.
If you knew my story, you'll know having a deported mom and having to struggle to keep going with life every day with separated brothers is a success passing obstacles in life.
If you knew my story, you would know that I was a teenage parent.
If you knew my story, then you'd know that I have very low self-esteem.
If you knew my story, you would know I deal with depression and it's very hard to go day by day.
If you knew my story, then you would know I was diagnosed with a muscle disease at 18. I had open heart surgery to remove a tumor when I was 19, and I live with this incurable disease every day.
If you knew my story, you would know that I was very antisocial before high school because I was afraid of what people would think of me.
If you knew my story, you would know that I was sexually molested by my babysitter's son, and that led to me getting bullied because I was antisocial for 4 years.
If you knew my story, you would know that I'm the only one in my family who's ever gone to college.
If you knew my story, you'd know that I tried to end my life more than 5 times.
If you knew my story, you would know that all my teachers expect little of me from what my past actions have shown.
Okay, if you knew my story, you would know that when I was a student at Paris High, 11th grade, went home from school on a Wednesday, April 8th, and found out one of my brothers was killed in a car accident. It's very hard to talk about it, still to this day. He was drunk and a drunk driver hit him. Nothing happened to the other guy. My brother passed away. Very sad story, true story though.
If you knew my story, you'd know that I dealt with depression, but yet I'm still successful about it.
If you knew our story,
Then you would know,
we have been in foster care for the past 5 years.
and we don't have no parents.
All right, if you knew my story, then you'd know probably 13 years ago today, I was living on the beach in a house in San Diego with an ocean view watching the fireworks at SeaWorld every night. I didn't have to work. I didn't go to school. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any responsibilities. All day I surfed or I played volleyball. All night I went out. I just got done watching the Oakland Raiders lose, unfortunately, the Super Bowl in San Diego. I was in the second row on the 50-yard line. I just returned from Europe. I had about $250,000 in my bank account, and I was living what I thought was the most glamorous, amazing, exciting life with no responsibilities and nothing but fun. And when I look back at it now, it was the most meaningless, worthless time in my life. And I'd trade it all again for time that's quality spent with family and friends that I love.
If you knew my story, then you know I witnessed my mother die in her deathbed.
If you knew my story, then you would know that my dad has been in prison throughout my entire life.
If you knew my story, you'd know that I self-harmed because I was told my sexuality was wrong as a child.
If you knew my story, you would know that I came to the United States when I was 15 and I did not speak English until I was almost 17. My parents never went to high school, even middle school, and I served in the Navy as a naval officer for 12 years. Now I have a master's degree and I'm a teacher at your school.
If you knew my story, you would know that in high school I was not focused. I ditched a lot, I fought a lot. I had a boyfriend. I was expelled from school for fighting, expelled from middle school. I was expelled from high school. I got involved in some things and was ultimately shot in the leg. I did a lot of things that I wasn't so proud of. Now I'm a single parent, trying to make a life for my kids. I'm at the end of my master's program. And my end goal is to become a teacher someday.